All right, we're live. How about it? Trying to let the Insta catch up so I can go live on Insta too. There we go. All right. Here we are, Rolling to Win Live. Tonight, I have a special guest. He is a digital estate expert. So, what happens to your Facebook when you die? This is the guy right here. His name is Garrett Wallace. We'll bring him right in. Hi, Garrett.
Hello, John. How are you tonight?
I'm well. So, how are things with you?
Not too bad. A little busier than I expected of the last week and a half or so, but it's all good stuff.
Being busy can be a great thing, that's for sure. So, I have some cool questions for you tonight. You know, I
Sure.
never thought I'd be talking to a digital estate expert on a live, but I feel like for my community that it's something that we should know about. Nobody even thinks about it. We all think we're going to be here forever, and
Yeah.
kind of because we think we're going to be here forever, we don't ever plan on what's going to happen. So here we are. First question.
Sure.
What inspired you to become a digital estate expert of all things?
Well, so I didn't exactly start off intending to be one. But it all kind of started. My grandmother had a terminal cancer diagnosis a couple of years ago. And in all of that, she was in her late 70s, very attempted to be very tech savvy for her age and always shopping online. So she and I sat down and I took some steps to help her stay more secure online using a password manager. And, she ended up making it a lot longer than they expected. But it turns out that when she did go, and my dad didn't want to deal with any of the digital side of it, and kind of was just, here's her laptop, here's her phone, shut it all down, do this, that, the other, just I'll trust you to make your best judgment on it.
Sure.
There was a lot of things that I noticed that just because we had done some preparation and not even thinking about the digital estate part, just because we had done some things in preparation, it became, and it was like a day just to go in, shut it all down, take control of all of it. And that's sort of started me on the path that, a lot of people really haven't considered that.
Right.
And then thinking about how much of a nightmare it would have been for me to try and do all of that if we hadn't, sort of at least loosely planned on what to do with some of it.
Right. Now you have kind of a unique perspective too. Like you started a company called Gopher IT.
Yes.
And you work with a lot of the nursing homes, don't you?
Yes.
Okay.
There's two facilities where I'm at that I do a lot of work with. The name Gopher IT also kind of a nod to my late grandmother. I was always how did she call that? I'd come over and essentially do chores and get paid for it, but I would be her gopher. I would go for this and go for that. And
gotcha.
So it's just another nod to her and sort of being the inspiration for it all. But yeah, I do. I work a lot with sort of the retirement community, the senior community. The facility I'm actually in right now, I think the youngest person here is late 60s.
Okay.
And I think the oldest one is like 101.
Wow. We can only hope, right?
Yeah. There's a little bit of a spread there. Some of the older ones are a little less tech involved than some of the younger ones. But they all, especially with the COVID years ago at this point, kind of all of them dug into the tech a little bit more because it was a great way to stay connected with their families.
Okay. Nice.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
So I've got a Facebook, I've got an Insta, I've got all these things and all these passwords. Can you explain what digital planning involves?
Well, the first step is usually to figure out what you even have.
Okay.
Like,
Mhm.
you said you have a Facebook and an Instagram,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I imagine that there's probably a couple of email addresses, at least
Sure.
one.
Right. Right.
Has to be at least one.
Mhm.
Um, but the digital estate planning is just kind of, in some regard, in my head, it's almost making a map
Mhm.
of how it all works.
Okay.
Um, to go back to my grandmother as an example, she had 3 email accounts,
Wow.
and certain services linked to one of them, and some of them linked to the other one, and the email addresses were sort of linked together. Um, and so it was really helpful for me, and it's very helpful now to sort of map it out to understand how it's all related. It's not just a list,
Mhm.
because the list is relatively easy, especially if you're using tools like a password manager.
Okay.
Um, that's one of the biggest suggestions I can make to just planning it out is the password manager, because it's almost a list of accounts
Mhm.
all in one. It's like an inventory almost,
Sure. Sure.
but it does lack that kind of mapping and how it relates and other things that you may need to access the accounts.
So you would kind of help organize all that, and then like I've got 4 kids, so if they were all fighting over my amazing digital website that I have,
Hmm.
um, you would what at that point? Like,
So at that point, ideally you and I would sit down before something happened to
mhm.
you, and to sort of make out a plan that you could actually include with the rest of like your will, or if you have a full estate plan, that you could include it with that,
Mhm.
so that regardless of whether or not they're bickering about it, you've set out a plan for it, and whatever you've intentioned is essentially what's executed. But
Okay,
it's all stuff that we sit down and would consider what you would like to have done with it.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So how would you say help clients to organize their online accounts and everything? Like, what's so special about a digital estate expert? I suppose.
Well, so I guess that comes down to a really interesting thing. It's almost a sense of security,
Hmm.
in a way. And I'm actually, there's a recent example of this. There's someone that I used to help, and this is before I had really considered digital estates.
Hmm.
But she passed somewhere around 3.5 years ago. Uh, and I wasn't thinking about it at the time. But just recently, 2 weeks ago, I got a friend request from her Facebook account.
What?
And after reaching out to her family, also through Facebook,
Hmm.
it's not her family that's in control of the account.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
Um, and so that leaves open. It's a Facebook account. There's history on the account that goes all the way back to 2014. It
Mm-hmm.
has all the hallmarks of an original account, of like an actual used account. There's family members that are tagged in posts through the years.
Right.
Um, and of course, whoever now does control that account has access to that history, the authenticity that comes with that history.
Hmm.
Um, because oftentimes the scammers and people that are trying to do that, they'll spin up a new account and they might pull
Hmm.
pictures from someone that's on your friends list and impersonate them. But
Right. I was going to ask,
you
like,
know,
why would somebody want the account other than,
mhm.
like family for pictures or what have you?
Right. So with all of that, though, like Facebook itself often monitors new accounts for
Hmm.
suspicious activity,
Okay.
but longer established accounts kind of get passed over on that.
Hmm.
So it's sort of a way that somebody can utilize existing accounts that have been abandoned or forgotten or
Hmm.
just not planned for, in a sense, and gain control of those and start using them in ways that we would probably deem kind of fraudulent or scammy. And
Okay. So it's like the age of the account that matters. Is that what
Yeah.
you know? Okay.
Yeah, like if you open a credit card, and you have no credit history,
Uh-huh.
they're only going to give you so much.
Right.
But if someone assumes your identity and there's 30 years of credit history,
Sure.
you can probably do some wild things before somebody's going to be like, "Hey, hold on."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a little strange.
So are there some things that people may overlook asset wise?
So, especially with some of the younger folks or maybe the more tech savvy older folks,
Mm-hmm.
anybody that's involved in like the cryptocurrency or NFTs or however you want to call them, those are essentially, if you don't make a plan for those, you end up, it's like you've got gold buried in the backyard and nobody knows it's there.
Right. So
except you can't just dig it up.
I've got Bitcoin. And I've never even thought about what to do with that if something happened. So walk me through that particular thing. Like, say I've got, for me, it's just a Coinbase account. I'm not really like crypto savvy, but I knew I should have some. Yeah. And there it is. Right.
So right now you've got it all stored, you said, on Coinbase, which is an exchange. And as long as someone that you trust, and from what I've gathered, you sort of have a plan for that. Mm-hmm. As long as someone can log into that account, you're good. They can transfer it or sell it or manage it however they need to. But for some of the ones that might have, say, a larger amount, or they've moved it to what's called like a cold storage, where they have one of those physical devices. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
A Trezor or a Ledger or Cold Card. There's a ton of them. If that device gets lost or somebody doesn't know what it is and they throw it out,
right.
Those are often secured with some kind of PIN code or biometrics or something. But that money can usually be essentially recovered or accessed as long as there's like a recovery code. It's usually 12 words or 24 words, or in some of the more, there's more extreme scenarios.
So look, this is,
but yeah,
I don't know why this came across my head. What if I had like their thumb print, like not their actual physical thumb, but a copy of their thumb? Could that get me into the account? Like, I'm sure that's not the best way, but.
So it would depend on how the biometric reader was set up.
Okay.
Some of the really fancy ones kind of look like the one that's built in or used to be built into like the iPhones.
Okay.
Right. Or into some of the Samsung or Android phones. They not only check the print's right, but they're checking for like electrical signal or something else, some other marker that you can't just necessarily like have a copy of it and just hold it up to it.
Right. I think I saw one time it was somebody had it might have been Mythbusters. They were taking like a photocopy, and some of the scanners would even work off of a photocopy. Yeah. But this is years ago, so I'm sure that it's probably better now.
Like I think I remember that episode.
Yeah.
And sometimes it worked.
I just think of crazy stuff when it comes to that. Like, I don't know. So let's see. What would be like a huge challenge that you face yourself, like as an executor?
So time to, like, if there wasn't a plan made, this is one of the problems I'm currently running into with that 3.5-year-old account that I'm working with the family now to try and recover. But some of the problems we've run into is that the family's gotten rid of her phone. They've gotten rid of her laptop.
Right.
The email account that it was all linked to was through a cable provider, Comcast, which has now been bought out by another company. It's now Xfinity or something.
Well, it's still Comcast, believe it or not. Yeah. They changed their own name to Xfinity. Yeah. Like I did some contract work for Comcast, and people were like, "I'm going to go with somebody other than Comcast. I'm going to get some of that Xfinity." I'm like, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like this shirt says Comcast, but I got one in the truck that says Xfinity. So like,
yeah,
which one do you want me to wear for this, right?
yeah,
Um,
and yeah. But some of the problems we're running into with that is, of course, Comcast. It hasn't been active in 3 years,
right.
which
Wow.
services like Google and other solely mail providers essentially don't shut your account down unless you've toggled some switches in there somewhere.
Like a Yahoo or
Yeah,
AOL.
Google. It's called the inactive account manager,
Mm.
and you can set it to do all kinds of stuff. You can have it automatically send a message after 6 months of inactivity,
Okay.
automatically close the account after a year or however long you
Mm-hmm.
stay.
So
Or
would you educate your customer or client on really like all that sort of thing to make sure that every, like in the
yeah,
event this happens that,
yeah.
okay, right,
That's
right,
part of it. Yeah, we'll sit down and make that plan. That's one of the biggest hurdles, though, is of course if we don't make that plan
sure.
and someone waits,
3 years, for
two,
instance.
3 years, yeah, for instance, yeah, that email account in particular has gone inactive.
Mm-hmm.
Comcast, I was just on the phone with them last week.
Mm.
They're currently not able to reactivate it because they changed something in their system and they can't even give me a time on when they'd be able to like reactivate it just so that we can start trying to regain a foothold on all of her online accounts.
Right.
And so, like time's kind of the essence in that sense too, because sometimes with physical access to like the computer or a phone, some of those login credentials, if they were saved, can still be used.
Right.
As a sort of a way to get in. It sort of jump starts the process.
Mm-hmm. Now, did they do away with an email after an account is inactive for a certain amount? Is that what happens with like your cable service provider, internet service provider?
So at least from my experience with Comcast, yes, that once you no longer have service after a certain period of time, they shut the account down, or maybe it's that there was no login activity for a certain period of time. I'm not entirely clear on what their metric is, but it's there.
Right. It might even be a pay for play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like if as long as you're paying your cable bill, you got it, and then you're not paying your cable bill, maybe not. So I could see where that'd be a huge problem. Now you're still currently working on this situation, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's trying to go through the channels with Facebook, and checking in with Comcast every couple of weeks to see if something changed.
So part of what you do is really take that worry away from somebody, and they have peace of mind that, hey, this thing is getting handled for me, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just making sure I understand fully,
Yeah.
So in traditional estate planning, you usually have like what your executor there. How does this digital asset sort of intersect with that?
So it can all fall on just the regular estate executor.
Okay.
As far as I know, you're actually able to designate a specifically digital executor. Someone whose sole job is to work with the regular executor.
Okay.
To make sure that the online front is handled.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. And of course, that's where we come in. We'd make the plan for it and even can execute that plan if someone were interested in that.
Okay.
But, at least there's a plan for the executor or for someone else that they've designated as the digital executor.
Sure. Now, can you think of any like misconceptions as to what this would entail?
Well, there's one really common at least one that I've run across.
Okay.
That for whatever reason, someone hears digital estate and they assume that it's somehow something to do with real estate, which, when you get into the cryptocurrency and everything, there is digital real estate. So I guess it could be a small part of it, but it's
like
it's more about
what would be digital real estate?
So I know that I'm trying to think of the name of the chains, but it's essentially land in the metaverse that you have bought with some kind of cryptocurrency.
Okay. Wow.
Essentially, it's an NFT on whatever chain it is, which is, it's a unique token for you that says that whoever owns that token owns this little digital plot.
So that's like those things where it's like the monkeys or whatever, the wild ape things, the wild ape NFTs, like were really popular for a while.
The Bored Ape.
All the celebrities were like, I've got this one. I paid $1.5 million for it and all that.
Yeah, those are NFTs, which are
okay.
That's short for non-fungible token.
Right. Okay.
Which means it's unique. It's not like you can't just trade it in and it's interchangeable. It's unique.
Oh, okay. Got it.
But yeah, that's it's essentially that. But the wild thing about like the digital estate stuff in the metaverse is that, of course, you can almost do like a game overlay on it, and so you can build a house and you can furnish it and decorate it, and
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's did you ever play the game The Sims?
I have played The Sims. Yeah, it was. I was addicted for a while to The Sims 3 and all the mods and stuff. I'd have to build my towns out to get like 12 or 1300 or 1400 different Sims, until my computer would freeze, and then I'd have to start over. Like, well, we have to meteor strike this whole thing. Oh no, the world blew up. Time to start over.
Yeah, but it's essentially like that they sell.
Okay.
There's one that comes to mind that it's there's like a central lake, and of course the land around that central lake is of course valued higher than the land that's not close to the lake.
Weird.
Yeah, it's
so like, what would be the whole point of that? That's wild.
Well, I can't say that I myself fully understand.
Okay.
But if I'm sort of grasping for straws, but
sure,
I would imagine that it's sort of that as we, at least if the trend of the last 10 to 20 years continues and we move into more of just a digital space all the time, and you have the augmented virtual reality glasses and you're immersed in spaces, that you'd kind of value a plot of that digital land in a way that you could go in and play, and sort of like The Sims, in a house that you've crafted in a location that you've picked and and sort of just the status of.
So you could just have your digital friends over for a digital drink. Digital cookout.
yeah.
Okay, that's wild. That's wild there. So, getting back to this whole stuff, like, I'm sure through all this, like, you've probably encountered some security concerns and stuff. So, so how do you handle those concerns for your clients?
So, a lot of that comes down to just ensuring that they're following good security practices. Two-factor authentication where possible. And there's, depending on that, there's a whole lot of extra nuance to that I could get into, but not reusing the same password. Every service has a unique password. And then, for the highly security minded folks, you could, never check that remember me box.
Okay.
And and while I suggest using a password manager because it is like almost the best way to do all of this,
Mm-hmm.
you can have strong unique passwords for everyone. Some of them integrate the two-factor authentication. For the highly paranoid or incredibly like secure accounts,
Mm-hmm.
the best thing is still kind of like that pencil on paper, and you never log in on a computer that you don't own and control and know.
Mm.
Uh, but
Okay.
there's been a couple of times that we've say one fellow, I was actually just up there earlier today. He he likes to practice logging in because he feels like if he doesn't, he just kind of forgets how to.
Okay.
So we go through the practice of it, but sometimes he'll forget his password, or
Mm-hmm.
he'll try to type it in and not quite get it right. And he insists on typing some of them, even though he uses a password manager. And
Mm-hmm.
and there have been times that he's changed it on his own and didn't click the update or anything, and that we've had to kind of like go in. But he freaks out because he can't get in and he thinks it's
Right.
been compromised.
Oh, I see.
Um,
I see.
yeah, but a lot of those security concerns, once we've gone in and we've got good passwords set up
Mm-hmm.
and some two-factor authentication, I mean, it takes a lot of that worry away.
Okay. So, what are some password managers that you'd recommend? Like,
Well,
I,
the
I, I
one,
use an iPhone iProduct, so I think that it
Mhm.
kind of comes with one right out
Yeah,
as it is. So,
yeah. The iPhone used to call it the keychain, but now there's actually a separate passwords application,
right. Yeah.
which has a lot of features that it was lacking before. It was a good upgrade.
Okay. Cool.
Um, but one of the big ones that I use, just because I have a tablet and two computers and an iPhone, and they're not all in the same ecosystem.
Mm.
Uh, Personally, I use Bitwarden. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's relatively highly rated. Might have been somewhere in there, number one at some point in the last couple of years. But it does the two-factor authentication integration. Um, but some of the other ones that are notable, there's OnePass. There's a guy here that uses LastPass, and it works pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's a couple other ones. I have a privacy email. It's Proton Mail.
Okay.
And in the last 2 years, they've been rolling out all kinds of new features. They have their own password manager.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if anyone uses VPN services, I know that Nord has like a NordPass. It's their branded password manager.
Okay.
Um, just the biggest thing with all of those, whichever one it is, it's important to make sure that it has the ability to either uh, essentially set emergency access.
Okay.
Like if you can't log in, there's someone that can essentially request access and wait 24 hours, 48 hours, and can get in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or there's some stuff that I've got like with Bitwarden and some stuff that I do with a lot of my clients. Um, it's set up in such a way that if they forget their password, or something happens to them and they've changed it somewhere and the executor can't get in, or I can't get in for some reason, we have a way that we can go in and actually reset that password. But that's not a typical feature of most password managers. I've had to set it all up to be
Okay.
able to do that, because most
Gotcha.
of them, if you forget that password, you'll get a password hint, and that's about all the help you get, unless you have that emergency access set up.
Right on. Hmm.
So,
So is like is there one that you would recommend like above the others, or are they pretty much like any
um,
password is a password manager is pretty good, or what have you?
well, I mean, I would recommend the Bitwarden.
Okay,
Yeah,
Bitwarden.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
I've used it for 3.5, almost 4 years.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, and
What are some
Uh,
particular advantages there?
well, I just it's a very simplistic interface. It actually integrates incredibly well on the iPhone,
Okay.
which is great.
Hmm.
Um, and then they have, for someone that's a little more security minded, they actually let you go in and fiddle with some of the stuff to make it more secure than it already is out of the box.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
So
Cool.
yeah,
It seems like that'd be pretty handy.
yes.
Right on. So I guess what do you like? You got into this, your grandmother's your inspiration,
Hmm.
and you work around a lot of people who are seniors.
Hmm.
So what do you enjoy the most about doing this?
Well, uh, I think I mentioned it to you a little while ago, but it's sometimes it's just sitting down and getting to talk to them and hear some of the stories that they have to tell throughout their life.
Right. Yeah.
Um, just there's some incredible stories that we've in a world before technology and before it could all sort of be captured on video as we can do it now. That, oh,
Right.
hey, look, we did this thing, or this is a really hard thing and we're filming it and it's
Hmm.
there. um, but the just for an example, one of the guys that I help, and I do plan to sit down and actually do like a short interview with him.
Hmm.
uh, Back, I think it was in the 40s or 50s.
Hmm.
He helped design like one of the first hockey masks.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
uh, which they're he played all through college and everything else. But same guy biked across the U.S. from Washington State to Washington D.C.
Wow.
But he was in his 60s when he did that,
Incredible.
which I'm not even sure. I'm not in crazy shape, but I'm in decent shape, and I don't even know that I could do that right now at 35.
Right.
And here he is doing it at 63, 64.
Dang.
So
So yeah, I could see like that would be it.
yeah, it's just inspirational.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Now, how does somebody get a hold of you, and what are all the services that you offer?
sure. So right now, probably the best way to get a hold of me is on Instagram,
Hmm.
which is just if I remember right, I've been filling with the tags, but I think it's just Garrett, Garrett .r.wallace, WALLACE. We do have a website, gopherit.tech, and there is like a newsletter sign up. Currently, right now, we do like a weekly, just kind of newsletter, more tailored towards the senior community.
Okay, where would somebody
So
find that?
that's the newsletter there, which is on
Right
the website. So
at
gopherit.tech.
gopher it.tech.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I was just popping it into the chat so that if somebody wanted to
Yeah.
find them there, they'd be
And
newsletter at
the
gopherit.tech.
Instagram two R's, two T's,
Oh,
just in case. Yeah. I don't know where that'll take them.
gotcha. So I can't spell. Don't leave it
All
up to
good.
me.
Yeah,
Two
you got it
R's,
right in
two
the thing
P's.
there. Yeah.
Dot R. Dot Wallace, like
You got it, man.
Sorry, hit the button.
like William
So
Wallace.
yeah. Uh,
Great
so some
shot.
of the most basic stuff that we do is essentially just sitting down and kind of shoring up your digital accounts.
Hmm. Hmm.
We'll enroll you in that Bitwarden where we can reset the password for you if
Hmm.
you lose it or forget the password or somehow just lose access. And then we'll work through each of your online accounts with you to make sure that it's a unique password, it's a strong password, and sort of make sure that two factors enabled whenever possible. And then from there, there's upwards from there, we do the digital security package, but then we start making a plan for all of the assets,
Okay.
doing things like that Google inactive account manager,
Mm-hmm.
Setting legacy contacts, and just setting it up for transfer on death, essentially.
Gotcha. On death, he says.
Yeah. I think the term they use for it is expiration, but
upon expiration. I like that. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. It's a little softer than death.
Is that what the chart says? Oh yeah. My wife's a nurse over here. She's monitoring some of the chat stuff just in case. And expiration. That's what we put it on there. So just like anything else, we have an expiration date. Yikes.
Yeah.
I'm glad they don't tell us. It's not like marked on your hand, because wouldn't that be like a mess? You'd be all kind of scared all the time. Like,
I feel like there's
only got 30 more years,
I feel like there's a movie that's based around that concept. There's some sort of watch
right
built in, and you got
like
time, and you work for it, and you get time.
24 hours, man. Then they have to go to work to get 24 more hours. Talk about slavery right there. That sounds terrible. Yeah, it's kind of Hunger Games-ish. It's called End Time. Time. Yeah, it's great. I love it. I think I've watched it about 40 or 50 times. Like, man, how would that even work? But yeah. Wow. So what's one piece of advice that you give to everybody about their digital estate? Sorry, not real estate.
So, I mean, if it's anything like me, when I first sat down with a password manager, I didn't even realize the extent of it all. Like, I think last I checked, I have like 260 some online accounts.
Wow.
Yeah. And a lot of them aren't ones that I use a whole lot, but they are out there, and they have some information about me in one manner or another.
Sure.
So one of the biggest things is biggest pieces of advice is, one, use a password manager. Make that to get that inventory, and then just sit down and kind of consider what's even out there.
Right. Okay.
And if there's anything that you might want to have done with it.
So don't use the same password over. I mean, we hear that all the time.
No, that's bad.
Yeah. You'd probably be ashamed if you saw all mine, to be honest.
Well,
I'm ashamed thinking about it, because I think I used password a few times, like password with the @ symbol. You got the password with the $2 $, because nobody would think of that.
There's that makes me think. A couple of years ago at the facility I'm actually in right now, I did a presentation on general digital security. There's a thing that they have that's called rainbow tables.
Okay.
That an attacker would use. And essentially, those have been running, I would want to say, probably close to 20 years in trying all the combinations of letters, numbers, and symbols. And of course, it's limited by computational capacity. As it grows, it takes exponentially longer to calculate.
You're talking about the length of the password as it grows?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Right.
Yeah. But those they've been calculating those for years. And if I'm, occasionally they will change the standard that passwords are supposed to be stored on websites, which your passwords are not anymore, hopefully, on most websites, most reputable websites. They're stored as what's known as a hash. It's not your password. It's just a garbled mess of letters and numbers, essentially.
Right.
But the thing with those rainbow tables is that they know the password. They know what the hashed version looks like.
Okay.
And so when there's a leak from a website, they get the hashes from the website of your password because it's not stored as your password. It's stored as the hash and encrypted.
Okay.
But then they'll compare the hashes from that leak to the hashes in the rainbow table.
Right. And you're talking
And-
like an AI is doing this, not like a
No.
programmer or something like
No,
that.
it's just a program.
Right. Right.
It's just a program. This isn't AI. AI would that's a whole nother topic. But
Okay.
but just from the security standpoint, you know, if the attackers with those rainbow tables know what the input password is and what it looks like when it's hashed,
Mhm.
if they find that hash in the leaked, you know, if a
Mhm.
website's compromised and there's a leak, they look at all of those hashed passwords
Mhm.
and they can see the username. But when the hash from that leak matches up with one from the rainbow table, they know what the password is and they can log in.
Oh man.
Yeah. So and often when there's a leak from one website and say they, you know, it's you know, Joe's website, you know, you have a login and it gets leaked and compromised.
Mhm.
They'll take that username and password and try it on all of the big ones, Facebook, Amazon, Google. Just they'll try it on all of them because they have a known good login. So they'll blast it across all of them.
Right. Just anything that may have you out there. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if you reuse the same one, might not just be one account that gets compromised. It could be all of them or five.
Whichever ones had that same
how many
password.
ever had the same password?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Dang. That's all the stuff they tell you to watch out for, but they don't
Yeah.
ever really tell you why.
yeah, it's
But how many passwords you have that are the same over there?
I don't even know.
She uses the same password for everything, apparently. So I'm not going to tell anybody her name because she would be ashamed. You ought to be ashamed.
yeah, that would be.
I
a
don't
great
even do
first
that.
step.
I just let the computer pick it. It's like, hey man, do you want a strong password? I'm like, I'm game. Yeah, let's throw down.
I mean,
Let's throw down.
that is much better than reusing the same one.
Right. So that's the question is like, is it good to let your password manager pick your password? So
generally speaking, yes.
okay.
There is it's on your side. It's trying to do what it can to protect you. But
Nice.
There's one, it doesn't have all of the nice online integrations and it doesn't synchronize across devices, but it's called KeyPass. I think it's in version 2 and there's an XC, which is like community edition. But when it generates a password, it has a nice handy what they call entropy meter.
Okay.
It essentially measures the randomness of it.
Right. Okay.
And of course, in all of that, you know, if you're letting it pick the password for you, some just by the nature of however you measure randomness, some were going to be stronger than others, more random than others. But generally speaking, especially if it's the computer picking for you, there's no reason, unless it's website restricted, that it only has to be 14 characters.
Right.
You know, some of like my, I guess another really good piece of advice, secure the core accounts, which I consider core accounts to essentially be your email and financial accounts. Like,
okay.
You know, if someone gets a hold of your email or can log into your email, they can systemically work through the rest of the accounts, reset the passwords, and get in.
Right.
So that's a really important one to keep secure. But
I think that happened to one of my iTunes one time. I had an old iTunes and somebody got into it because I got to log in and it was like Shangzhou or something. I was like, yeah, I don't think that's me. Like, I don't recall traveling to China anytime recently, but to China.
No, I'm going to be busy this weekend.
You're busy.
Fixing
all your passwords. Right. All right. Somebody has developed a project, so I know to leave her alone.
Yeah, good.
Go through and get all her passwords.
That is a good endeavor. Yeah, start with your email accounts.
Start with the email, and then, well, your financial accounts for sure. So that was
Yeah.
all the same password. I could have had
Email
all that
and
this whole
finance.
They're
time.
not all the same password.
Oh darn!
Not as ashamed as she could have been, I guess.
Right.
But that's good.
Shame.
I don't know which ones are the same.
Oh man, she doesn't even know.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah,
goodness.
but that's the great part. If the computer's picking for you or the password manager's picking for you, unless it's restricted by the website, and there's several that I have to log into that restrict it, but there's no reason that you can't have a 30-character password or a 50-character password.
So if you had
more.
one that was that long, like you're talking, that thing would take from here to eternity to figure it out, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that like one time I was playing around with something. I can't remember what it was, but you plug in like a 4-digit and it would crack it in like 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you plug in like a 6-digit and it would take hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then you plug in a 10, just so on and so on. I think I had it up to like 344 years at one point. I think that's the highest I got it, just playing with it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember where that was or when that was, because it could have been any time in the past 20 years. So
yeah, it's that's that exponential growth. You add one and it 3 minutes, you add one, it's like 15 minutes. You add another one and it's like 3 days.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Permutation? Speak
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Just ask the
It's a
question.
permutation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, man, that's a big word.
Permutations
How
and
you spell
combinatorics.
I'm gonna need a dictionary because now I don't even know what that means. Other than
some statistics. Advanced high school or early college mathematics and statistics. There, yeah, your permutations and combinatorics, like
right.
As
what statistics? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That was my favorite in school. What do you mean?
That's the only math I was good at.
Statistical math.
Yeah.
Hey, that's not even real math, is it?
I know.
I hear that 46% of statistics are all made up.
I thought it was like 70% of statistics were made up.
Oh man, goodness, it's gone up over the years apparently. Nice. Well, I appreciate you talking with us this evening.
Yeah, man.
You have anything you want to add before we take off? You want to throw your security deal out there? What do you do in your security package? If I have so if I call you and say, "Look, man, secure me," what are we looking at?
So we'd sit down, probably set you up with that password manager, and the one, as long as you were interested in it, the one where we could reset the password in case something happened or you couldn't typed it wrong somewhere or changed it accidentally and didn't record it. But we would systemically work through all your accounts and secure them, and kind of give them that strong password, make sure that it's not just the bare minimum that it asks for. And we ask 400 for that. And if you want to do the enrollment where we can reset it, that costs me a little bit a year, which I have to pass on, but it's about $100 a year, but we'll go through and check up on it all the time. You sort of get check-ins to make sure it's working. And, and that comes with setting it up on your smart devices, on your computers or tablets, on all of those, and making sure that they're integrated and kind of working together.
Rock on. So in the chat, we have how to get a hold of Mr. Garrett Wallace right here. So be sure to hit him up for all your questions in the future. And if there are any questions, this is the time. So I see a few viewers. We just need some questions. Any questions? Because we're about to wrap this thing up. Don't see any questions popping up. All right. I guess they're going to have to. This is speak now or forever hold your peace. And I guess that was the forever hold your peace part. So.
Okay.
All right, Garrett. Well, I appreciate you, man. So I'm gonna close this out, and
sure.
Once we pop off the live, I'll talk to you for another minute or two, and
Sounds good.
So,
thanks for
having
everybody.
Thank you so much for watching. Tune into the next Rolling to Win live. It was going to be Wednesday, but I'm going to go get a new wheelchair Wednesday, so I'm going to try to keep everybody posted on that. I'm excited. So, other than that, it's definitely going to be Friday, but maybe a Thursday if I can get this guy on. So we'll see. All right. Thanks, everybody. We're out.